When I was about 10 years old, I convinced my mother to allow me to take my next younger sister and brother to the local 7-Eleven store a few blocks from our house by myself. We set off on the way, and a couple blocks later, we passed by a few teenage boys. They must have noticed the yarmulkes on my head and on my brother's head, and so they started teasing us for being Jewish. We quickened our pace, and then they started throwing pennies at us. We made it to the 7-Eleven, we got our Slurpees, and we returned home. I told my mother what had happened and asked her what was going on, and she said that, unfortunately, there are some people in the world that don't like Jews. I said, but why were they throwing pennies at us? And she said, well, they like to say it's not true that Jews are cheap or they're money hungry. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't bring myself to tell my mother the full story. In my childish way of wanting to show these fellows up and not being big enough to take them on physically, I had stooped down to the ground and picked up the pennies that they had thrown and put them in my pocket. I thought I was showing them up when in fact I must have been, in their minds, proving their ridiculous theory that Jews are money hungry or cheap. As I got older, I found it fascinating that the rabbis had instituted a law that requires every Jew once a year, no matter how uncomfortable he or she may be, to not only confront but to display and announce our Judaism. On Chanukah, for 8 nights, we have to light a menorah either right in front of our house or in the front window. It's like we're telling those in the world that don't like us, you can throw your pennies at us, you can throw stones at us, you can throw Molotov cocktails at us. We're not going anywhere. We're in it for the long run. And to announce to any Jews who might be passing by our homes, this is a Jewish home. You've got a friend inside if you need one. And to remind us that no matter what we're doing as Jews, whether we're being really smart or really cool or striking people out or fighting bad guys in outer space or riding on a broom and doing magic or using our superpowers or changing the way that people in the world interact or running our father-in-law's presidential campaign, we should always be proud to be Jewish, no matter how fierce the opposition. But there's more, because the rabbis also instituted a law that we're not supposed to use the light of the menorah. After we light it, you're not supposed to pull up a chair and start reading a book using that menorah light. Instead, you're only supposed to look at the light, to think about what it means, to contemplate the fact that it's the light of the Torah, the light of Judaism. It reminds me of the iconic story when Moshe, encountered the burning bush. He noticed that the bush was on fire but wasn't being consumed. And he said, I have to turn and investigate this incredible sight. Why isn't the bush burning? Many of us would have noticed it out of the corner of our eye and just said, just keep walking straight. Whatever you do, don't look at that bush. Because if the bush is burning and it's not being consumed, that could mean that there's a God in the world. He may start asking us to do things. But Moshe instead turned to look at the flames. And that's when God spoke to him for the first time. And we're supposed to turn to look at the light of the menorah, to think about what it represents, and to ask ourselves, just how Jewish is my home the rest of the year? And there's still more. Because the rabbis also say that when we light those wicks on the menorah, you're not supposed to hold the candle for just long enough to create a flame. You're supposed to hold it longer until the flame widens and expands, to remind us that it's not enough to confront or display our Judaism. It's not enough to look at the light and contemplate what it means, that light of Judaism, that light of the Torah. You have to do more. You have to fan those flames. You have to spread that Torah, that light of Judaism, both in your home and outside. Have a happy Chanukah.